Welcome to our final session of the day. You have really stood with us through the 3 days and attended most of the sessions. I could kindly ask people to mute. If you're not talking, kindly mute. Kindly mute your microphone. So this session is State of Wikimedia in Africa. We have Dumisani and Alice on stage who are going to take us through the session, and Derek as our trust and safety. Thank you for being part of this, and I welcome Alice and Dumisani on stage to give introductions.
Hello. So let me test if I'm sharing my screen and if you can see.
Sure. We'll wait and see.
Okay, let's try this. Alice, can you rather share the slides, because my computer is refusing me to do that.
All right. All right, Dumisani, let me get to that.
Dumisani, as Alice shares the slides, could you introduce yourself to the viewers?
Sure. Just a second. All right. So thank you so much for joining our session today. My name is Dumisani Dubane. I'm based in Johannesburg in South Africa. And I am a long-time volunteer for the Wikimedia movement. Started editing in 2008 on my Xitsonga Wikipedia. And around 2011, 2012, I joined the local South African chapter, which is Wikimedia South Africa. And I worked with the chapter for some time, leading some of the community activities and projects in the chapter. And later on, I joined the Wikimedia Foundation in 2017. I work for the Wikimedia Foundation as the Community Governance Committee Support Strategist. And today I will be presenting this session with Alice, who is from Uganda. So I'm hoping Alice has got us sorted and that we can start with the presentation.
All right, Dumisani, please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening,
All right.
everybody.
For some reason, I can't see the slides on my side, but I will trust that, yes, the slides are visible for everyone. You just have to let me know, Alice, on which slide we are on as I continue the narration.
All right, then. Good evening,
All right,
everybody.
so on the first slide there, as you can see there, the topic of our presentation today is the state of Wikimedia in Africa. And to start our presentation today, we want to, right at the beginning, to apologize to people who are not going to be able to mention in this presentation, to be able to truly speak about the state of the region and the movement is almost impossible under 50 minutes. But we have tried our best to include as much of the activities and the successes we've seen in the movement. So let's start. Since 2014, Wikindaba has become a convocation for African Wikimedia communities in the continent and in the diaspora. It's an invitation for us to come and sit under the African tree to reflect on the past year, to connect with old friends, and to make new ones, and to plan for the coming year. For the fifth session of Wiki Indaba, Wikimedia Community User Group Uganda invited us to sit under the umbrella-shaped acacia tree. And this is the tree that you see in the logo of the Wiki Indaba and as well as in our first slide there. This tree is found in many areas of the continent, and in Uganda it can be easily spotted on the savanna plains under Mount Kadam. Many species of the acacia tree have symbiotic relationship with the species of the ants. The plants provide ants with food and a home in their thorns, and in exchange, the ants kill bacteria, leaf-eating insects, and competing plants. And of course, the silhouette of a giraffe eating the leaves of the umbrella-shaped acacia is a classic image. In this sitting, as the sitting comes to an end, let us review some of the successes and challenges that we faced since we last met in Abuja in 2019. Next slide, please. All right, so before getting started, let's take some time to give a resounding round of applause to Wikimedia Community User Group Uganda for organizing this successful fifth sitting of the Wikimedia Wiki Indaba conference. The user group had to change hosting plans and adapt to the novel challenge of global pandemic, which forced almost every human interaction to a halt or to go virtual. Bravo, well done to the local organizing committee members and to the volunteers in Kampala and elsewhere who made this event such a success. A big round of applause to everyone. All right, so Alice, please tell us what this
Yes.
presentation is about.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very
Dumisani.
much, Dumisani.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody, for
everybody, for
sparing some
sparing
time
some time
to
to
attend this
attend this
particular
particular
session.
session.
In this
In this
particular
particular
session, consider
session,
me the
consider me the
magician's
Can you
magician's
hear
assistant.
us? Are you able to speak?
Yes, I am.
Yes,
Can
I
you
am.
hear me?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So, my name is Alice Chibombo. I am a volunteer with the Wikimedia Community User Group in Uganda. I have been editing for a while, but most recently I was serving as the Wikipedian in residence with AFLIA, and this is an opportunity that is extremely invaluable and has actually given me some very, very valuable insights on the state of the community in Africa, and not just the state of the community in Africa, but the state of the Wikimedia movement in Africa. The Wikimedia movement it's incomplete by design, and this is through no fault of our own. But the only way that we can fill this kind of gap is by is by filling content gaps, knowledge gaps, and the motivation to fill these gaps and document the knowledge that we're privy to are the things that make us keep coming back to Wikimedia and its projects. To to fully measure the state of the health of the community in Africa might be a very, very, very big task. But then in our community, we tend to look at certain areas that give us the opportunities around which we innovate, around which we research, and around which we come up with projects on. And the number one supporting factor is the diversity of languages. So in this presentation, we are going to look at the community health in relation to language wiki projects. Then we are also going to look at affiliate growth and health since we last met in Abuja. And we will also look at the state of the community in Africa in relationship to partnerships and programs. Dumisani, anything to say before I proceed? All right. So coming into Wiki Indaba 2021, a lot of things have happened. Very many things have happened in the community, to the individuals, to the affiliates, in countries where there were no affiliates, but there have been some overarching themes since we last met in Abuja. This means we haven't met in the last 2 years. We have not had any comprehensive overview of how we've been performing, and this was compounded by the situation presented by COVID-19. And I think this is also making us reset and rethink the visions that we have for the future of the movement in Africa. So coming into Wiki Indaba, we called for proposals, and very many of you were eager and willing to share uh, information about the things that you have been up to in the last 2 years. And this information was divided or revolved around some overarching themes. So the largest percentage of submissions that we received, or the kind of thing that people showed interest in, was community topics, developments, and projects. And under this, we were looking at things like languages. We were looking at things like community growth. We were looking at things like outreach. Outreach was in the second part of outreach, education, and GLAM. That took the second position with 27.7 of you expressing interest and actually submitting topics or content, or wanting to share content that was from these overarching themes. And then the rest was maybe not fairly divided, but divided between gender and diversity, which came in third place. Gender diversity and inclusion is actually that. So here we were looking at the traditional content gaps. Then we looked at technology and infrastructure. A number of you also expressed an interest in partnerships and the opportunities that partnerships had to offer us. Then we also looked at innovation and research. We looked at governance and strategy. And then we also received a number of topics, including advocacy, safety, and community health. And if you've been very observant during these last 3 days, most of the sessions we have had have been revolving around these general themes, and our colleagues have been able to show us the ways in which they innovated around this, ways in which they were able to build their community, ways in which they were able to identify opportunities that were viable and make a meal of that. And Dumisani, please take over.
Thank you so much, Alice, for that background on the themes that we observed coming from this wiki in Durban. All right, so let's go on to the first section of the first part of this presentation in terms of language projects. And you already have attended 2 presentations during the last 2 days on statistics that are coming out of language projects and how they should be understood, including the impact and how the community has labored to bring out such good work. One of the pleasant surprises coming out of the pandemic in 2020 is the growth in regional language projects. First, we want to take some time to celebrate the Afrikaans community for entering the 100,000 pages league. Big round of applause for the Afrikaans Wikimedia community for that feat. This community has really stayed on course over the years as a testament of what a small group of committed individuals can bring a language project to success. Secondly, we saw a reinvigoration of the Swahili Wikipedia during the pandemic, managing to add around 6,000 more articles in their tally between the period of 2020-2021. Well done to this new energy that we're seeing coming through as a great collaboration between communities in Kenya and Tanzania, as well as in Uganda. Then to the west, we saw an impressive rise of the Hausa Wikipedia that enters the top 10 club. We also want to commend the efforts of all the user groups in Nigeria who continue to galvanize the content creation and awareness in efforts in this case. We also, coming back to the South, we want to recognize the effort of the South African chapter, as well as the community in the exciting rise of the Zulu Wikipedia. The Zulu Wikipedia has also entered the top 10 club, and half of the current number of articles that they have on the Wikipedia were written during the actual pandemic. And so this community has really shown, this region has really shown what can be done with volunteers working together, even during the toughest of times. Next slide, please. All right, so let's look at what's happening outside of the top 10 club. We also see there an equal energy and enthusiasm from different communities. We do want to recognize the following projects in particular. In Morocco, the Moroccan Arabic Wikipedia, which has doubled the number of articles as well as the content in words, and including other illustrative media, since we were together in 2019 in Abuja. So we want to say a well done to the Moroccan community for the work that they've done there. We also, let's talk about some of the rough side of Wikipedia, or of editing on Wiki. We see a great momentum and movement that's happening on Incubator at the moment. Here we want to call the exceptional work that Ozoma is doing on the Igbo Wiktionary, which is really a hard place to work in. And yet that Wiktionary is growing on Incubator. So a very big well done to Ozoma there. We also want to recognize the inspiring efforts that Precious, or Tochi to most of you, has done on with the Amakua Wikipedia, which is also on the Incubator. This is one of the first written resources that this Mozambican language has anywhere on the internet. So much respect as well to Tochi for the great work that you are doing there. We hope that you will all persist in this good work, and that by the next time we meet again for the next Indaba, those projects that are on Incubator will have gotten out of the Incubator and will have their own language spaces. So let's go back to Alice and find out
Yes.
what observations she has made on content initiatives, as well as challenges that come with being a volunteer editor in an African language on any Wikimedia project. Take it away, Alice.
Thank you very much, Dumisani. So we've seen that we've been able to grow the communities through languages, but it's not just about the languages, but also the content that we were able to see a subtle bump in. I mean, we contributed 2%, which might be very little as a number, but for content to be generated from a continent, despite all the challenges of connectivity, diversity of languages, electricity, and all that, for us to be able to collectively contribute to a 2% bump is something that is commendable. So when it came to contributing to the content Dumisani, we observed that there has been an increased thematic contribution and engagements away from the traditional gaps. The traditional gaps being every time we're talking about content gaps, we are looking at it through the lens of gender. Yes, gender initiatives are still taking place, they are growing by day, but then we are also seeing an increased momentum and increased participation and contribution from other sectors like GLAM. I'll give an example. During the African Libraries Conference in Abuja,
Sorry, Alice is off a little due to internet connection, but she's coming back on. Just give her a minute. Okay, Alice is coming back on now.
excuse of this is Africa, but something happened with the internet connection here. Please let me share my screen again. And we can start this. Okay. Wow. Oh, sorry. Let me stop sharing. Something's happening here. Yes. All right, I am back. Please confirm that you can see my screen. I am informed that half the crowd was not able to listen from the time I began speaking. So in relation, yep. So in relation to languages and any other thing in between, we also noticed that there were increased contributions from very many editors on the continent, and there were very many thematic engagements that were that went away from the traditional gaps. The traditional gap here being the gender gap, because between now and Abuja, very many projects had come up to address the gender gap, but the opportunity for very many the lockdown in very many countries presented us the opportunity, or presented very many affiliates the opportunity to now interact with demographics that they had never really thought about. And these are the demographics that are actually bringing in an increased thematic contribution. I'll give you a very good example. During the Wikipedia in African libraries course, we were able to receive more than 2,000 images of African information institutions. And then also in relation to the content initiatives, many of the partnerships that have come about have presented opportunities for us to now begin thinking about continental repositories and customized open educational resources for the African community. And we've also seen the advent of very sophisticated documentation, sophisticated by our standards. A very notable example of this was the Nigerian languages oral documentation project. Fine, we had initiatives that would capture one thing here or one thing there, but this time there was a sustained effort to actually cover uh, local languages in Nigeria. Had there been initiatives like that before? Maybe so. Had the efforts been sustained? We are not so sure that it had been done to the point that this was done in Nigeria. And then that also brought about some challenges and opportunities for the people that we recruited. So generally, most affiliates and most communities were found well equipped with funds by the time the pandemic broke down, because it informed the circumstances and the environment in which we worked in. So it wasn't really so much the cost of data as the internet connectivity. So most user groups are now able to afford the cost of data. And the biggest challenge for very many editors that are recipients or beneficiaries of this kind of largesse is the internet connectivity in their area. But then other opportunities that we have seen coming through this is the ongoing support for newly recruited mentors for newly recruited editors through cross-border mentorship. Again, we were having lots of virtual events, meaning that we could now recruit not simply from our geographical territories, but we were now able to recruit regionally or even through communities of practice. And we were drawing mentors from different countries. And as an example, you could be a mentor from Uganda and you would be mentoring somebody that is, say, in the Sudan, the Gambia, or Somalia. And these are relationships that have been built. And I must say that a number of editors are now thriving because of the one-on-one mentorship. But lastly, something that we also noticed is that with the way Wikimedia is evolving, continually growing, it has come to a point where some form of specialization is actually not just necessary, but it would be recommended. So we are continually seeing initiatives that are coming up that are offering responsibilities for people's professional skills. You're going to find very many photographers, professional photographers even, engaging in photographic competitions. When it was time to update health related information, we found very many health workers actually actively contributing to the information that was on Wikimedia and its various projects, and they were combating disinformation. When it came to things like using other projects' structured data, we were also looking at information workers operating in an environment that offered responsibility for their professional skills, that drew on the skills that they had to offer. So Dumisani, I just take over from me at this point.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Alice. Thank you so much for letting us know what's happening in terms of the different content initiatives in the continent. The second session of this presentation is on affiliates. Since the last Wiki Indaba in Abuja, we have seen two more affiliates being recognized in the African region, one in Ghana and the other in Sudan. We want to send a warm welcome to those affiliates and wish them success and growth. We are also seeing interesting applications and plans for applying for recognition in West and in East Africa. The promise for growth is both exciting and encouraging, particularly the promise for greater regional coverage as well as the prospect of welcoming new members. So, if you are in a region where there is no affiliate and you are already trying to connect with other community members and editing, this is a great time to start thinking about forming an affiliate in your region or in your country and joining the African affiliate family. Next slide, please. So, not only are affiliates growing, but we also need them to grow diverse. From the 2021 affiliates survey, we found that affiliates reported having more than 1,000 members in the African region. These are members who are actively involved in affiliate activities at slightly higher rates compared to the global average, which is very good to see. However, we also see we also see a decrease in the percentage of women members in the last 2 years, and that even fewer women making it into structures of leadership amongst affiliates. And this is something we then have to start talking about as a region and as a community on how to attract and to retain women in different aspects of our communities, not only as women who are running programs, but as women who are leading affiliates as well. Next slide, please. All right, and yeah. So on the next slide, we're talking about affiliates growing, but we also want to see affiliates growing diverse as well. Um, the problem that we are facing currently as a community is the lack of women in structures of leadership. 1,104 members, uh, and only 40% of those being women as members, and then less than 18% of them finding it their way through structures of leadership. This is something we need to confront as we continue to grow as a community. Next slide, please. And as we are planning to grow as a community, we also need to understand how are we going to get resources to do the things that we need to do as a community. African affiliates have reported an average of awareness of available resources and funding opportunities within the Wikimedia ecosystem. Awareness is slightly lower amongst newer affiliates. And so, if you're a new affiliate or have been recognized in the past 2 to 3 years, this is a great chance to start reaching out to the Wikimedia Foundation community resources teams to understand what kind of resources, grants you can be able to access to be able to run activities in your community. The encouraging insights from the report we are seeing is that affiliates also display a strategic understanding of the programmatic focus, and they also match those focus with the necessary capacity needs. Here, these are the needs that affiliates would need to develop to improve and to grow as well. So, well done to the African affiliates on being able to understand what kind of capacities do you need to develop so that you can get better at running the programs that you are interested and focused on. So now let's hear from Alice in terms of her observations as she connected with other non-affiliated communities, as well as the challenges of running an affiliate in the region. Over to you, Alice.
Just a minute as Alice sorts out her mic.
And now? All right. Thank you. Oh. All right, then. Thank you very much. Sorry for this minor interruption. So, the statistics that Dumisani has presented are really to deal with existing communities that had been here possibly before Abuja, pre-Abuja, and post-Abuja. Congratulations to the ones that have been recognized. We wish success to the ones that are in the making, but also through the course of our activities, we were able to notice that there were some emerging communities that offered potential, again drawing on the fact that Wikimedia and its projects is now in a position to offer responsibility for professional skills. So we have observed that there's sustained activity in some professional communities and communities of practice. For example, the journalists, and at this point, I need to mention the Visibility Project run by Wikimedia Nigeria, as well as the African Women in Media. It started in July of 2020, and I think as of now it is in its third cycle, and it is actually training female journalists across the continent from countries we thought we would never have any participant from, but we are able to draw from that pool, and the training is in both English and French. We've also seen specialized training for information workers on the African continent. Very many user groups have held individual trainings for mostly librarians and archivists, and I think are also making inroads for museum curators now that that is being appreciated. But we are also seeing communities and editors that are coming to us by country. We are talking about editors from the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Somalia, Zimbabwe, and Ethiopia. And these are not in diaspora, they are actually resident. They are based in the countries we are talking about, and it is around these editors that we are building local nuclei that can actually be able to support and sustain any movement activities. An example that we normally give is Zimbabwe, which I think within the last 2 months have actually been able to hold at least 4 editathons and counting. All right, Dumisani. Dumisani.
Thank you, Alice, for that presentation on. Thank you, Alice, for that presentation on emerging communities. Let's talk about partnerships now.
There we go.
Next slide, please.
There we go.
All right, and this being the final segment of our presentation on partnerships, we just wanted to show you a couple of partners and partnerships that were mentioned during the Wiki Indaba presentations. We'll come back to questions and answers shortly. This is the second from the last slide. All right, so in terms of partnerships prospering in the region, we can finally truly say we have come a long way as a community since our first Wiki Indaba. We've managed to grow collaborations with different partners and aligned organizations. From our early days with the Goethe Institutes being the only partner we had in the region, to our newest partnership with the African Union, which was a presentation that you had this morning, I believe.
Yes.
We need to call out some outstanding work that's being done across the region in terms of partners and partnerships, as well as initiatives that bring us as the regional community together. Here we start by calling out the great work that Isla and Florence have done in organizing the continent with WikiLove's contests over the past 5 years. These have really contributed to galvanizing communities around the world, around the continent. So well done to Isla and Florence for that. We also want to recognize the amazing work that is being done by Olushola and Isaac, who are together with the Nigerian community, working on many awareness campaigns with different partnerships that they've been able to create over the years, from academic institutions to radio stations, as well as embassies over the past 3 years. Well done for that work. We also want to recognize some wonderful effort that's being done by Rudolph and Felix, who are both working for the Wikimedia Foundation, in the work that they've done with the African Union and AFLIA, which you had a presentation yesterday and today. These are great partnerships that we can explore to see what opportunities are there to work with these institutions across the region, because these institutions possess mounds of African knowledge that we need to unlock. So well done on setting those communications and conversations going. We also want to recognize here Kanye and Matutu for the exciting experience that who both work for the Wikimedia Foundation, for the exciting experiments that they are doing on communications, as well as on awareness and awareness drive around Wikipedia. I believe that there are three countries that they will be soon experimenting with in terms of how do we get the awareness around our projects going in the continent and in the region using communications channels. The African community members are encouraged to seek out these opportunities to collaborate with these partners to grow content and improve our networks in the region. Next slide, please. So we can emphatically conclude that the state of Wikimedia in Africa is that of growth, it's that of excitement, and it's that of health. On that note, we hope to see you at the next Wiki Indaba under the next African tree. I think we can take questions and answers now.
Thank you, Dumisani and Alice. I see there's a raised. Oh, she has gone off. There was a raised hand. Let's look for the Q&A. So Kelly Foster has a question for you. I'm interested to hear the presenters' reflections on how Africans in the diaspora are presented in leadership spaces in the global movement, and inverse of the usual perspectives of Wikimedia on the continent. Yes, Dumisani.
Thank you for that question. I think that's a question from Kelly, and we've had these conversations every time we are at Wikimania or at Wiki Indaba or during our annual meetups, Africa meetups at these spaces. It is a question we need to answer as a community. How do we want to be represented in those spaces? How do we want to take leadership of conversations, including conversations on strategy and conversations on resourcing? And I'm glad to say that there is very great improvement compared to 4 or 5 years ago. We are seeing a lot more African faces coming up in these conversations and leading. So, is it enough? No, it can never be enough. We have a lot to say in these conversations, and we encourage community members to take the opportunities to be involved in those conversations, be involved in the committees, look out for the drafting communications around the movement charter, participate and comment on what you think should be the rules that govern us as a movement together. So, yeah, there is some representation, but nowhere close to where it should be.
Thank, thank you, Dumisani, for that feedback. There was someone who raised their hand, and I don't see their hand anymore. If you could kindly raise it again so that you can ask your question. In the chat, I do see a lot of shout outs in regards to the presentation and in regards to the statistics that you were able to display. Yeah. You're welcome to ask any questions directly in the Q&A, and you can raise your hands too. Okay. Okay. So I've handed the mic over to Douglas. You're welcome, Douglas.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you guys can all hear me. I just want to know what resources does the Wikimedia Foundation offer the community to support the growth of African language wikis? It's sort of a special problem, as Dumasai knows, it's a special problem that we here in South Africa are especially interested in. Thank you.
Yes, Domi, can you hear us?
Erina, I can hear you, but I could not hear Douglas for some reason. So, if
So,
there is a
so Douglas was asking what special tools or support does the foundation give in terms of the small languages, the African languages?
That's a great question, and a question I'm not able to answer directly at the moment. I can tell you, though, that the Wikimedia Foundation has refreshed its granting system. And so we have now, we are repackaging what we think about things such as rapid grants, simple APG grants, and including special project grants. So the right person to reach out to would be Veronica Taimani, who is my colleague in the community resources team based in Kenya. She can give you more information on what resources have been specifically earmarked for indigenous languages. And I'm sure that a collaboration can be made there if there's a proposal on the table.
Thank you, Dumisani, for that feedback. And I'll direct this next question to Alice. Alice, Derek from Rwanda is asking, when you generally look at achievements of all communities in Africa, does it align with the 2030 strategy?
Thank you very much for that question. In very many ways it does, and in very many ways it does not. Like I said, Wikimedia as the movement and a lot of the stuff that we do, it is incomplete. And this is because our needs are dynamic, our participation is dynamic, our contribution also keeps changing. Some priorities do change, some are emerging, some have been presented to us by the situation, but overall, in very many ways it does, and in very many ways it does not.
Thank you, Alice. Please don't go off stage. Where are the improvements much needed? This is still your question. Where are the improvements much needed?
Improvements in terms of the responses by the African community? Is that what Derek means?
Derek, you could clarify in the chat.
Hmm.
Could help clarify that question in the chat. So as Derek clarifies that question in the chat, we can go on to Chris, who is still asking you, Alice. Alice talked about specialization. I would like her to expound a bit. Thanks.
All right. Chris, the world of knowledge as we know it, it's unending, it's universal. It takes in a lot of things. And previously, most editors, if you sat down with them and they talked or they were honest enough to tell you about their initial efforts or their initial foray into not just Wikipedia, but other Wikimedia projects, most were limited to editing, and not just editing of a particular kind or editing as a contribution to some thematic engagement. But with the various projects that are now cropping up, and with the kind of attention being given to various projects, not everybody is going to go on to become a good editor. Some are more interested in, for example, taking on, or for example, in contributing images and archival material. Not everybody is so gifted at identifying archival material that would be good and whose copyright is expired and now it's in the public domain. Some are going to become very good community mobilizers. Then not everybody has the same social skills or the same access to a certain network of people. Some people are recluses and they're going to go on to be working with some particular projects. So there's something for everybody. You will find that information workers will be more interested in what GLAM has to offer. You will find that people who say do photography and documentation and interested in repositories are going to be finding their niche in Wikimedia Commons. So this is the kind of specialization, maybe not specialization in Wikimedia, but the kind of work that you do out of Wikimedia, you will find an application for it in a certain Wikimedia project X.
Thank you, Alice, for that. And maybe I'll direct this last question to Dumisani as we come to the end of this session. Dumisani, I hope you can hear me. What are the improvements much needed, that is to be done by the communities in Africa? Dumisani.
People need to stop working in isolation.
Yeah, great question. Great question. What improvements are needed to be done by other communities uh, in Africa? I think we need to start prioritizing. We are working on so many projects. We are working on so many thematic areas, and may have spread ourselves thin. I mean, just 1,100 and something volunteers across the continent is not a lot, and therefore we need to start being strategic about what projects we get ourselves into, and see those through, and be patient with ourselves. It takes time to build a good source of knowledge, especially in our region where reference sources are not easily available, where accessing the internet is not cheap, where traveling is not um, easy to do. And so we need to be a little bit more patient with ourselves, but be strategic with the human resources that we have, and work on projects that don't spread ourselves too thin on.
Thank you, Dumisani. And finally, Alice, if you could quickly answer Titus from Uganda. What is the vision of making Wikipedia as a whole more appreciated and inclusive to students, probably as editors?
Students are just one of the many demographics that we can work with. And students, maybe because of their youthful nature, bring a certain kind of dynamism to the movement and everything that it has to offer. But in terms of making Wikipedia more appreciated and inclusive, Wikipedia is not bastardized because it is necessarily a bad resource. From my experience, it is simply a lack of understanding. And I'm not saying that by creating awareness, things are going to be fine or everybody will be won over to your side, but um, uh, increased awareness about what Wikipedia is as a resource is going to be able to help you appreciate and participate in various projects. We're done. We're backstage. Sorry.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Alice. We are still live for people who think we are off. Yes, but we have come to the end of the session. Next session is the closing ceremony. Please go ahead and join the next session and give a shout out to the organizing team, the 27 volunteers. We're going to invite them on stage and we're going to give them a shout out and a hand clap. Let's join the next session, which is the closing ceremony. Thank you, everyone. Don't leave the platform. Enjoy the booth, enjoy the lounge. I know there are going to be meetups after this and people are going to talk. So, yeah, thank you, everyone. Bye bye. Let's meet in the next session.
All right. See you in the next session. Thank you very much for your time.